We're waiting for you. Festerson?
Here.
Gurnett? Gray?
Here.
Jerem? Stothard?
Here.
Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for invocation by Councilmember Stothard.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather here today, let us be mindful of so many in our community who are not as blessed. Let's reach out to those who may be without the comforts and securities we so often take for granted. Hopefully, through our efforts, we can make a difference in someone's life and extend a helping gesture to make just one day a little easier.
City Clerk certifies publication on Daily Record on June 22nd. Notice for Review Council and regular City Council meeting June 26, 2012. A current copy Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome. This Omaha City Council meeting is conducted in public and by law may only address the topics listed on the published agenda. The Council will hear testimony but will not engage in debate of issues with the public at this meeting. During testimony, it is not appropriate to applaud or convey disapproval. These actions only detract from the formal decorum of the meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute any electronic device. Mr. Clerk.
Zoning ordinance on final reading, planning board attachments. We'll take items 5 and 6 together to one case. 5 is ordinance to rezone property located southeast 178th and Pacific Street from R4 single-family residential district high density to R6 low-density multifamily residential district. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. 6 is ordinance to approve a PUD planned unit development overlay district. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearings on agenda items number 5 and 6 begin now. Are there any proponents?
Yeah. You can come up right after he does.
I'm John Coolidge, engineer with Lamper and Earson and Associates, 14710 West Dodge Road, here on behalf of the applicant, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents?
We have now, so that's your chance to get up. And there's a letter that you just received on your from the Spring Ridge Homeowners Association.
My name is Sheila McNeil. I am a member of the Spring Ridge Homeowners Association. We don't really oppose this rezoning. We just want to ensure that sufficient parking, especially sufficient parking for the employees and visitors on site, will be done. We did see some original plans, and they did not at that time have enough parking on site, and the streets there are just too narrow to allow street parking. We also would like to make sure that appropriate landscaping is provided for the approved plan. The development will not cause any drainage problems for the Spring Ridge subdivision. In the past, there is a drainage problem there, and we do realize that they can't fix that problem, but just so they don't add to the existing problem. We want to make sure that the location of the entry to their property is far enough away from the corner so that it doesn't cause traffic problems. There's a school located just a block away, and there's a lot of traffic, of course, in the afternoons when people go pick up their children. We also want to make sure that if the rezoning is granted for this development, it's only for this development, and if this development doesn't go forward, that the zoning reverts back to the original zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents? Public hearing is closed. Well, just a moment. Mr. Coolidge, would you care to address any of the concerns from
Sure.
Ms. McNeil?
some. Phil?
Have you got an overhead? Is that it?
Yeah, I'm trying to turn the overhead on if I.
It's on the third.
Okay, just to review, this is the new Hy-Vee location here at 180th and Pacific. Here's the existing strip mall, and this is the location of our site at 178th and Pacific, and this is an adjacent lot. So we had a neighborhood meeting with neighbors, open meeting, and invited them all to attend. We had the people from Spring Ridge Owners Association, as well as the subdivision to the north, both attended that meeting and brought up the issues that were stated here, and we believe we addressed those issues at that meeting, but we'll go over them again here. Sufficient parking for the 40 employees. This is a convalescent care facility that will serve primarily people who have had major hip surgery or knee surgery after the hospital. They will be transported by ambulance to the facility where they will be. So they will not have a vehicle. The patients would not have a vehicle at the facility. We're proposing 42 spaces for a maximum number of 40 employees. That's not a single shift, would be less than 40, somewhere in the 30 employees segment. So we have an additional 10 spaces to accommodate shift transfer. So we believe that parking has been accommodated. We didn't want to overpark the site, and we believe that parking is handled. Appropriate landscaping, we do show, this is our landscape plan that is submitted with the PUD agreement. We show trees on all the exterior, as well as very nice interior landscaping. So this is a first-class operation and will be landscaped fully and fit in well with the neighborhood. Not cause any drainage problems. Well, by code, we can't increase the runoff that this development causes. That's the requirements of the post-construction stormwater management. Can't increase the flow associated with it. To do that, we're going to have a rain garden here that's a dry detention area that's in the low part of the site, so that when it rains, this area would fill up with water and then slowly drain down. If this doesn't have capacity, we will also add an underground detention system. So they're concerned because there's an existing drainage way that goes right through here, and they say the neighbors told me at the meeting that has had some flooding issues. We will not add to that. By code, we aren't allowed to. Ensure that the location of the entrance will be set back from the intersection. The original plan showed the entrance actually here. We modified the entrance location and moved it to this location. Here's the existing site. There's an entrance here for the adjacent lot, so we've really moved it about as far as we think we can in that direction, and also to maintain our drainage pond, we've really moved that entrance location over quite a bit. So we think that's a good entrance location. No traffic issues. I mean, again, it's a one staff change that's that they do at 2 and 10 p.m. So it's off-peak hours, and we don't anticipate a huge staffing traffic congestion issue. Again, we think that this is a first-class development that's an amenity towards the neighbors. It's not a 4-story apartment. It's a nice single story with some relief and well landscaped, and a real addition to the neighborhood. We had general support at the meeting and that we held for the the neighbors, and we believe we've addressed all the issues. I'd encourage you to support this project, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
If you could just stay right there, Mr. Coolidge. Okay, going back to the parking, are visitors allowed on site to see their relatives?
There are visitors that can visit the site, yes, but it's according to the management that, as they told me, that the parking.
Would you put your map back up?
Let's see.
Go ahead, continue, please.
So again, we've shown 42 stalls with 30 employees maximum. That would only be during the day shift, during the rehabilitation projects. This is the requirement for, we've exceeded the requirement for code for the project. The owners have a lot of experience with this type of facility, and they feel that they provided adequate parking for what they normally entail. So we've met code, and according to their projections and what they've seen, they own facilities in Colorado and Kansas City, that this is a sufficient number of parking stalls.
Do you feel the extra 12 are enough for visitors? Your estimation?
Yes, in my estimation, well, 12 stalls is 12, that's 25% of the occupants at any one time having a visitor. You know, if there was overflow parking, Poppleton is a public street. We don't anticipate any parking on Poppleton Avenue. In order to push more parking onto the site, we'd create more impervious surface and affect the layout. I mean, could there never not be a little overflow? I can't say that, but I think that it's a well-designed project and that they provided sufficient parking, in my opinion.
Regarding the drainage, I thought I heard you said if the retention pond doesn't solve the problem, then you would go to an underground?
No, I'm just saying we haven't done a full detail. We've done a preliminary drainage study that determines, and we believe that this size detention pond would adequately handle the runoff from the system. However, if we, during detailed studies, or if this gets shrunk because of grades or something, the owner has said that they would also use a tandem system with this pond combined with some underground detention if required. They're hopeful that they can get it all accomplished with the detention pond as shown.
Hang on just a second. So, Mr. Cunningham, you would keep an eye on that? Is that correct?
He just walked out the door.
Okay.
Mr. Cunningham.
I have to submit to
I would assume then that, Mr. Brown, that's part of the agreement that we're...
He's back.
Mr. Cunningham, if the surface drainage, the retention pond, does not work well enough, will you be the one that will then add on the extra requirement for an underground cavern?
This is Rick Cunningham, Planning Director. Actually, we would be working in concert with Public Works because the site drainage requirements are under their jurisdiction, but they are correct. At this point, when they came in for a building permit, or even before, we would coordinate the review of the site and what happens with the stormwater with Public Works. I'm sure that Mr. Stubbe can add to that, but they would not get a building permit without having adequate treatment and storage, retention, detention of stormwater based upon the stormwater regs.
How long do we monitor that? Up to a year, 2 years after?
Monitor the actual system to make sure it's working? Yes. I'm going to defer that to Mr. Stubbe, the Public Works Director.
Bob Stubbe, Public Works. There is a requirement typically in development that they have to submit what's called a post-construction stormwater management plan. So that would be some. Pardon me?
At what point?
Typically with the project itself.
Okay.
So they will lay out with regard to all the conditions concerning that particular layout. And as Mr. Cunningham indicated, we have engineers on staff that will evaluate their plan both prior and the post-construction stormwater management plan.
Okay. Thank you. And then one more question. You said that the shifts come and go at 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock?
That was the last information. I assume that there's one in the middle of for the night shift as they scale down to a skeleton crew. But I told the major shift changes were at. Let me check my notes here. Because I believe there was one in the morning as well.
They could be 12-hour shifts.
3 12-hour shifts?
Yes.
Or two 12-hour or 3 8-hour?
Don't make the day any longer.
They did. I apologize.
What time did you say they went on duty? Or did you?
That's what he's looking at now.
8. Okay. 6, 2, and 10.
6, 2, 10. Each one of those are off-peak times, so that will help.
Right. Those are the major incoming of employees, and then they scale down as they go through the shift according to the owners.
Well, it's good that you met with the owners, and it's good that I hear that they're just double-checking and getting on record today what was promised to them at the meeting.
We did want to get in front of them and held a public meeting, and we hoped that was informative to the neighborhood, and we thought that they were positive to that presentation.
All right. With that, I move the approval.
Second.
Mr. Cunningham, I assume that the planning department is comfortable with the number of planning stalls that they have planned for this facility. Is that correct?
Rick Cunningham, Planning Director. Yes, sir. We've worked with them on a number of different issues on the site plan, so it's gone through a number of gyrations before it's come to the planning board or to you. And so at this point, yes, we recommend that you approve it.
Thank you. Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Stothard? Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
the ordinances are passed 7-0. Item number 7, ordinance to amend sections 55, 43, 68, 203, 205, 563, 734 of the Omaha Municipal Code regarding assisted living and the use regulation summary. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on agenda item number 7 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray? Jerem? Stothard? Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
passed 7-0. Resolutions are preliminary plats, subdivision agreements. Item number 8, resolution preliminary plat entitled Country Club Hills, located southwest of 63rd and Girard, along with attached conditions. Hereby accepted in preparation of final plat of this subdivision is hereby authorized. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on agenda item number 8 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, sir. Douglas Dreesen, 10836 Old Mill Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is a abandoned piece of right-of-way that we're trying to develop up in the country club area. We've met with the neighbors numerous times. We've reduced the proposed original residential lots from 15 to 14. We've gone through a set of covenants with them. I think both sides agree that we're very close to having this ready to go. We ask your approval, and we hope to submit for final plat at the next submittal date. With that, I'd answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents?
Jerry Slesky, 8712 West Dodge, representing the neighborhoods surrounding the subject property. We're not opponents. We have been, as Doug mentioned, working together. We have a comprehensive declaration of covenants and conditions. We're about 96% negotiated, and both Doug and I and our clients feel comfortable. In the next week or so, we'll have this all worked out. There is one correction, and that is that the plat that's in your package shows 15 single-family residential lots, and our agreement is 14, and I think you have a substitute plat for that. So with that, we are in agreement that this should be moved along. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. This is in my district, and I've been working with the applicants and neighbors, and I appreciated their approach. This was a unanimous recommendation out of Planning Board, but still had some remaining concerns from the neighborhood that I think are being addressed as we just heard from the testimony. But a couple more follow-up questions, and then I do have that amended document that I'd like to submit before we consider this today. I think maybe for Mr. Dreesen first. So you mentioned, I know density was a concern for the neighborhood. It was originally, I think, 15 single-family lots with an outlot. Now it's 14 single-family with an outlot?
Correct.
And that's what the documentation says, but the attachment we have today is an error of that. So the attachment I'll propose here will reflect the 14 single-family and one outlot. And then can you discuss some of the drainage concerns you went over with the neighborhood and the parking concerns?
Yes, the drainage, apparently there's been an ongoing problem with the neighborhood to the south. Those are smaller lots. There's an old railroad culvert that comes under Girard Street near the western end of the project. The information we've got from the public meetings is oftentimes that culvert gets overwhelmed. It's probably one that the railroad originally put in years and years ago. So in response to that, what we've agreed to do is add a curb and gutter with curb inlets along the south side of Girard to help collect that water rather than letting it run over the road. Collect a lot of it as it comes down, primarily from the east side, get it into a pipe so that there isn't so much surface water at the sump of Girard Street. We've also added in the outlet a detention basin to help detain that water, as well as a smaller detention basin south of the eastern tier of lots east of the outlot. So we believe there's going to be significant improvement to the surface drainage performance, particularly noticed by the neighbors to the south.
Okay. And parking as well?
The parking, Girard's kind of an interesting street because the railroad right-of-way was irregular as it ran along there. A lot of Girard is pushed to the northern portion of the right-of-way. So you'll see some long driveways. There's a long piece of right-of-way, right? I should say an extra wide piece of right-of-way, particularly on the western end of the site. That's due to our dedication of part of the railroad right-of-way to Girard Street. There are also areas where the right-of-way was originally only 100 feet deep. So in those cases, I think there's a couple right east of the outlot where the driveway will be fairly short. We did agree with the neighbors to design the residences so that 4 cars could be accommodated outside of the house in the driveway without blocking the sidewalk.
Okay. And talk a little bit about the covenants that we just heard about. What will those entail, and what is the long-term guarantee or effectiveness of what you're agreeing to?
Well, the covenants, they cover a wide range of stuff. They're very similar to what's come before this council many times. There are things related to the outside finish of the buildings, landscaping, drainage, the maintenance of the outlot. There's probably 10 or 15 items that we've worked through, and there's been give and take on both sides. We've, as Jerry said, we've had kind of a collective effort. We don't want to go in there and create a bunch of enemies. These are people that know the neighborhood way better than we do, and we want them to be supportive so that the project ends up being successful. So I think on both sides, at least my opinion is, there's been give and take, and there's been a willingness to work together to gain something that will be seen as an improvement by both sides to the area.
Okay. Thank you for that. Maybe one more question for you, and then maybe one for Mr. Slusky. When is construction anticipated? And the reason I ask is we have a major event occurring in this area in 2013 with the senior PGA finals there, and I wanted to make sure that wouldn't cause a problem.
Well, we'd really like to get it tore up in time for that, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we still have to go through the final platting process. The nice thing about this project is it lays pretty well, so it's not a significant change in grading. One of the things that I think pleased the neighbors is there isn't a significant change in grading, and we think we can preserve some of the existing vegetation and trees that are around the site, so it won't look as if the whole place has been flattened and started over from zero. There are some trees that have been identified that are very desirable by the neighbors, and we're going to do our best to preserve as many of those as possible. But I would say we're looking construction probably late summer, early fall.
Of this year?
Of this year.
Okay, so by 2013 shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, you can move in probably 2013.
Good, because that is the next major event after this week of the swim trials and the College World Series, and maybe the figure skating comes before this, but then the next big thing in Omaha will be this tournament, and we need to make sure that goes well.
Yeah, if it wasn't for this job, I'd have more time to do this kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Slusky, just one question for you. So you described your comfort level as 95 to 96% assured with the new covenants and agreements from the neighbors. We laid this over 3 weeks last time to make sure that was buttoned up, but you're feeling okay if this went today that things are buttoned up?
We do.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your help with the neighbors. And I want to thank Mary Thielen, too, for her communications on behalf of neighbors. I think it really helped to make this project better and make it one that can fit in the neighborhood there. So with that, I do want to make sure we do move the new document. Mr. Clerk, is that a separate amendment?
We just amend this document to replace the Exhibit A.
On a separate motion?
Yeah.
I'd like to propose we amend this preliminary plat with a new plat, which is document A, which reflects 14 single-family lots and 1 outlot.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
As amended.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray? Jerem? Stothard? Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Passed as amended, 7-0.
Thank you.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held July 10th, agenda items number 9 through 11 shall be laid over 3 weeks to July 17th. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, agenda item 12 shall be laid over 3 weeks to July 17th for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, agenda items 13 through 16 shall be laid over 3 weeks to July 17th. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, agenda items number 17 through 18 shall be laid over 3 weeks to July 17th for publication and public hearing. Special use permit, item number 19, resolution special use permit application to allow general office in a GI General Industrial District located at 12720 I Street is hereby approved. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing on agenda item number 19 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Larry. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
It's adopted 7-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, agenda item number 20 should be laid over 3 weeks to July 17th for publication and public hearing. Liquor, item number
21.
Did I read the right one? We haven't done 20. We haven't done 20 yet, have we?
That was
simple. Okay. Item number 21. Frank Stolich Meats, 5170 Q Street, package liquor license, new application, new location.
Public hearing on agenda item number 21 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes. Kathy Turco, Frank Stoysich Meats. Answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents?
Motion to approve. Second.
Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's adopted 7-0. Item number 22, Wine 121 at 12100 West Center Road, Suite 905. Request permission for an addition to the Class CK liquor license of the Sidewalk Cafe to the south.
Public hearing on agenda item number 22 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Barry Schmeichel, the owner of Wine 121.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Jerem. Stothard. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's adopted 7-0. Item number 23, the Marquee Lounge, 14805 West Maple Road. Request permission for an addition to their Class C liquor license of a beer garden to the north.
Public hearing on agenda item number 23 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray. Jerem. Stothard. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Approved 7-0. Item number 24, Broadmoor Market, 8722 Pacific Street. Request permission to appoint Oliva Norman manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 24 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, Michael Leon with Olivia Norman, the proposed manager. She's prepared to answer any questions. She's worked at the facility for 4 years. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval. Second.
Roll call.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Approved 7-0. Item number 25, Jack's Place at 1818 North 203rd Street. Request permission for a special designated license for a beer garden and band on July 20th from 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. Music would end at 1 a.m.
Public hearing on agenda item number 25 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Chuck Guthrie, 3010 North 204th, Omaha.
Yes, sir. And did you?
No, I'm representing Jack's Place.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Guthrie, are you the owner, manager?
I'm the manager.
Manager,
Yep.
okay. I believe this area it doesn't have a lot of residential, does it?
No residential.
Okay.
The traffic closest would be 5-6 blocks.
5-6 blocks.
Yep.
Okay, we usually don't go with the 1 o'clock, but I might be willing to experiment this time since you are in a pretty isolated area. But next year we may have to reevaluate depending on whether we get complaints or not.
Okay.
With the music. So we'll try it and see what happens, and but we'll keep an eye on it.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I'll move the approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's approved 7-0. Item number 26, resolution that Big Red is granted approval to operate a satellite Keno location at 711 North 114th Street, the Fedora's Lounge.
Public hearing on agenda item number 26 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Katrina Coffey. I'm Vice President of Marketing for Big Red Keno. We're located at 11248 John Galt Boulevard. I have with me today the owner of Fedora's, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, if the owner could identify himself.
Brad Darden, 8006 Grover Street.
Okay, Brad, I know that you've been on excuse the pun, the Fedora fix lately. And so hopefully that the Keno will help you have a more stable crowd.
Absolutely.
And did you tell us at one time that you were going to change the name?
We are actually in works on that. It's about 2 months away.
Okay. All right. That's all, Mr. President.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Adopted 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause an item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearing on agenda item number 27 was held on June 19th, 2012. Roll call.
Festerson? Yes. Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Yes. Stothard? Yes. Thompson? Yes. Mr. President?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items numbers 28 through 36 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by your name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or opponent. Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson? Yes. Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard? Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
They're all adopted 7-0. Ordinance on final reading, item number 37, ordinance to amend section 41-2 of the Owensville Code dealing with adoption of amendments for the air pollution rules and regulations. And 38, we'll take both these together, is a resolution that the attached rate structure of the 2012 permitting Omaha Air Quality Control to collect fees to offset the cost of operating permit and asbestos inspection program in Omaha is hereby approved.
Public hearing on agenda items number 37 and 38 begin now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Festerson? Yes. Gurnett? Yes. Gray? Yes. Jerem? Yes. Stothard? Thompson? Yes. Mr. President?
Yes.
They're both, well, one's passed and one's adopted 7-0. Resolutions, item number 39, resolution attached Victory Apartments, LLC, tax and refinancing redevelopment project plan for the redevelopment project site located at 819 Dorcas Street to completely rehabilitate the interior of the 6-story structure to build out office on the bottom 2 floors of the building and 80 residential units on the remaining top floor targeted for U.S. military veterans is hereby approved.
Public hearing on agenda item number 39 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Bridget Hadley, City Planning. This TIF project is located at the former St. Joseph Hospital location at 8th and Dorcas and proposes, as was read, to rehabilitate that 6-story structure and create housing for U.S. military veterans targeting at-risk and homeless veterans. And at-risk simply is referring to veterans who have maybe lost limbs as well as suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. This campus will also incorporate Grace University's psychology department on the 2nd floor. They will be leasing that 2nd floor. And the Veterans Administration will be leasing the 2nd floor, and the Grace Psychology Department will be leasing the 1st floor. And that will provide much of the supportive services that the veterans will need. There will be 80 units. They're primarily 1-bedroom and studio-type units. This particular property has been vacant for over 10 years, so this TIF project will help to make this particular property very productive and enhance the tax base. With that, I would ask your approval, and if there are any specific additional questions, the representative of the owner is here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Gurnett.
Bridget, you gave an excellent definition of what whom this project is going to serve, but just for the record, the term at risk is basically a boilerplate label that is used so neighbors and those that have some questions about it, I have received from both neighborhood groups that border this particular area. Just wanting the record to reflect that. Would that be accurate?
Bridget Hadley, City Planning, yes, that would be.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's adopted 7-0. Item number 40, resolution attached Nottingham at Gifford Park Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan for the redevelopment project site located at 3304 Birch Street is hereby approved.
Public hearing on agenda item number 40 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Bridget Hadley, City Planning. This TIF project represents a rehabilitation of a property that's been vacant a little over a year and has been on the city's code enforcement list. It has been placarded. There has been engagement with the neighborhood, positive supportive neighborhood engagement to support the rehabilitation of this particular property that has 32 units. They will remain one-bedroom units. This particular project will help to stabilize the Gifford Park neighborhood, and it will also serve to provide housing for Creighton students as well as nearby employers. We have a representative of the owner. If you have any other questions, I ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Jerem.
Yes. Where's the representative of the owner? Mr. Lang. Come on down. I've spoken to your client on the phone, and after my initial skepticism that it could actually be reality that someone would improve the Nottingham apartments given their state of condition. I mean, not only were those things demolished, but the pipes and whatever valuable metal commodities were in there were taken. And I was convinced of his sincerity of his development and heard about the TIF application. I just wanted to thank you, or to tell your client thanks for investing in that area. This has been a long time problem property in that community, and it borders our districts. It's just south of Councilmember Gray's district, but it's a key corridor to north-southbound access in and out of Gifford Park, and so it's important what you see when you come from the north or when you leave the neighborhood. So thank you for your clients doing this.
You're welcome. I know this is Jim Lang, attorney representing the applicant. They've worked very hard on this project for some time, and they worked with Bridget here, as she knows as well. So they have worked hard on it to make this a reality. They're moving forward with it. I'm pretty sure they have their financing pretty well in place. So we're pretty confident it's going to be a reality and it's going to move forward. And the building itself, I'm not an architect or anything, but it's got a very unique look to it and a type of building that should be rehabilitated. Thanks. Appreciate the comments, on behalf of my client.
Mr. Gray.
Just ditto the comments of my colleague on the left here, Councilmember Jerem. I too wasn't very hopeful, but now I think we're going to see something that is going to be really good for the neighborhood and really good for the community, and I appreciate your efforts in doing that.
And I'll relay those comments, and he'll appreciate that on to my client, who's not able to be here today, but I'll relay those comments on, and he'll appreciate that. He's put a lot of time and effort, and as you know, sometimes these things are very difficult, so he'll appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
Roll call.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Adopted 7-0. Item number 41, resolution attached 3101 South 24th Street, tax increment financing redevelopment project plan for the redevelopment project site, the historic Exarban Beef Building located at 3101 South 24th Street is hereby approved.
Public hearing on agenda item number 41 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Bridget Hadley, City Planning. This TIF project represents a adaptive reuse of the Exarban Beef Building. This will become housing for low-income housing or low-income individuals, as it is a low-income housing tax credit project as well. There will be 20 apartment units a mix of 4, 3, and 2 bedrooms. It is a historic structure, and it is also on the National Register of Historic Places. This particular project, because it has been vacant for quite a while, will also enhance the tax base because it will take this vacant property and make it productive. So with that, I ask for your approval. The representative of the owner is here if you have any specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Gurnant.
I'd like to thank the developer for placing their faith and their trust in a portion of my district and taking a beef industry building and taking it and moving it into housing. And I know it's not going to be an easy project, but certainly appreciate, and hopefully the neighborhood is working with you, and I know that they stand behind you and they're eager to see that get started once you get through all of the financial steps and move forward. But I also like to thank the planning department for staying vigilant on this property as well, and not giving up faith in it as well. It's a tough building to deal with, and like it's about 5 feet off of the street. So my thanks to, again, both to the developer and to the planning department for all your efforts. Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Adopted 7-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7F, agenda item number 42 should be laid over 3 weeks for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7D, the public hearing on agenda item 43 shall be held on third reading. Item 44, ordinance to accept the bid and authorize payment to Motorola Solutions for the purchase of maintenance for the CAD computer software.
Public hearing on agenda item number 44 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
We'll take items 45 through 48 for one hearing. They're all CSO projects. 45, ordinance declaring necessity of acquiring private property for the purpose of constructing Saddle Creek Road, 55th Street to 64th Street area sewer separation project. 46 is the construction of the Miller Park to Pershing Detention Basin sewer separation project. 47 is the construction of Martha Street to Riverview Lift Station Phase 1 CSO, and 48 is the Martha Street Phase 1B, Lawrence and Garden Sanitary and Storm Sewer Separation.
Public hearing on agenda items number 45, 46, 47, and 48 begin now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, third reading and public hearing agenda items number 49 through 54 shall be held on July 17th. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7C, the public hearing agenda items 55 through 65 shall be held on the second reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard? Thompson? Mr. President?
Yes.